James Thomas. I'm here today with Salah Bachir. He's an author. He's been working in film for the last 4 decades. He has a brand new book out, First to Leave the Party, My Life with Ordinary People and What Happened to Be Famous. It almost sounds like my life. Salah, good morning. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. So tell us a little bit about this memoir, this book that you have.
So it's uniquely told. It's like a bunch of stories with different people I've met over time, became friends with, and you get little snippets of their life, and then you get a snippet of mine by the end of it. So it starts with Marlon Brando having a barbecue in the backyard at my parents' house. I had met on the film The Freshman when it was filming in Toronto, nearby where I worked, and it ends with Katie Lang singing at our wedding. And it includes Elizabeth Taylor, Aretha Franklin, Ella Fitzgerald, Patricia Neal, Paul Newman, Jimmy Stewart, and a few people you may have heard of.
Speaking of people we never heard of, tell us about your friendship with Ella Fitzgerald.
Well, Ella had performed in Lebanon in the early 70s, and when I met her, it was a small place called the Imperial Room in Toronto, which is a dinner theater. And the Imperial Room is famous for having Ella, Tony Bennett, Tina Turner, everybody played the Imperial Room. It was a small, and it's also famous for turning down Bob Dylan, who they wouldn't let him in because he didn't have a tie on. But she asked where she could get good Lebanese food, and of course I told her my mom's, like everybody else would say, and then I started delivering food to her. She would only eat after a performance, and we became friends, and she had diabetes, I had diabetes, and I got to meet her or see her a few times at home in LA, and would go every time she was in Toronto, and a friendship developed. I still have her purse, actually. A friend bought me her purse at auction, and she said that purse went with her everywhere, and it was closer to her and more dependable than any man she's known.
Sounds like most women we know. So, you wrote the book about the early days of the AIDS crisis in New York and the activism of ACT UP founder Larry Kramer. What is the significance of bold-faced names making these public gestures like Princess Diana, Elizabeth Taylor, and Doris Day?
Well, there was a time when no one would mention the word AIDS. I mean, we just went through a pandemic with COVID, and every night there was updates of what to do, how to wash, what it should be. But during the AIDS crisis, no one was mentioning anything. We would hear that someone, had died, and I would leave a jacket in the back of my car in case I needed to go somewhere. And during that whole crisis, I stopped knowing how to cry. I couldn't cry anymore until my dad died years later. But Larry Kramer did it fought in the streets. He used all the civil rights movements, tactics, and led the group in the streets. People like Doris Day was the first person publicly to touch and kiss Rock Hudson, who died in 1985. And when he died, he said, Rock Hudson's in heaven. Elizabeth Taylor, Elton John have huge foundations from the early days supporting AIDS and being very prominent and very front and center about it. Elizabeth had said that people died of ignorance, not from anything else. And people like Princess Diana came to Toronto, came out all places, visited hospices, and again, touched and kissed people and shake their hands, refused to wear gloves. And some of the AIDS patients didn't want to touch her out of respect for and love for her. But yeah, I mention all those and in tributes to all the people, what we've gone through, where we are, and all the stigma and hate that's still out there.
Speaking of that, Salah, you founded and nurtured several community AIDS and other organizations. How have things changed in those areas over the years?
Well, I mean, there's a community center here in Toronto, and several community centers where they serve not just the gay community, but refugees, immigrants, anyone needing clothes, needing food, counseling. There's a lot of counseling that has to take place anywhere someone's transitioning, if someone's not sure, non-binary, exploring, and immigrants trying to find jobs and And the one in Toronto serves 170,000 people a year. Things have changed, but there's still a lot of stigma and but a sense of community that we are all in it, gay, straight, whatever your sexuality. We're allies in care and compassion, really. It's nothing more than that, and nothing should separate, allowing people to love who they love and be who they are.
Now, this book you wrote is unique that you do not worship celebrity, but are more concerned with what certain stars do with their celebrity. Can you tell us more about your views on fame and how you managed to write about celebs without gushing?
Well, we're all doing a job, right? I mean, like I got to know, once you gawk over something or once you worship something, I think you lose a connection. You're not looking at anything, um, with any reality, nothing based and you can't aspire to be like those people or do those things. And I think the idea is that everyone here was doing a job, and some of the biggest stars at the end of their lives, like Brando and Elizabeth Taylor and Orson Welles, were dismissed because of their weight. They couldn't get work because they had gained weight, or people like Betty Davis or Patricia Neal, or had strokes or had health issues, and we just threw them out like yesterday's garbage. In a sense that, wow, so you're considering this guy the best actor of the 20th century, but he can't find a job because his weight has changed. You know.
Mm-hmm. Jesus. Is there anyone, I say that, I'm saying it is really ridiculous that people think that way and are that way. That is just so crazy. Is there anyone who didn't make it in your book that you wish you had included?
Um, well, I wish I had said more about both Eartha Kitt and a few, Aretha Franklin and a few others. And maybe if you set me up with Patrick Mahomes, he can be in the next book.
I hear what you're saying. So I have an interesting question for you. I know you're there for LGBT rights and you've done a lot in the community with AIDS and other organizations. But would you consider all of this civil and human rights? How would you categorize it?
It is part of human rights. It is, being who you are. Like we're encouraging people to lie and to hide and not celebrate who they are or what they bring to the table. Or we sometimes want to, and living your life as a lie. I mean, who would want to encourage anyone to lie throughout their life, whether you're gay or straight or anything else like that? So it's all about human rights. Someone transitioning, someone who's not sure, non-binary, like there's enough struggle and suicides going on because there's not acceptance and support. And I think a lot of the celebrities I did cover did support change and did support people being who they are. And I have no idea which religion or which political party would tell you that you should go through your life lying about who you are. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. All right, last question. Where can we pick up a copy first to leave the party?
Well, Amazon has a sale on right now of it. You can go to my website, salahabachir.com. But if you can't find it in your local bookstore, ask them to order it. It's published by Penguin Random House. And yeah, I would recommend getting it. I don't know what you think.
I recommend getting it. You're talking about human rights, you're talking about civil rights, and it just really bothers me that, first of all, that people feel so alone and so pressured, especially to commit suicide, when we are all one people, no matter who we love, who we like, or what we do.
And there's so much a common thread with everyone. I think try and find that commonality, that life that brings everybody. There's joy in living your life and being yourself.
I agree with you. Been speaking with Salah Bachir. We're talking about first to leave the party. Thank you so much for the interview. I really appreciate it. A lot of insight, a lot of information there. And let's not forget to pick up the book, First to Leave the Party. Salah, thank you once again for joining us on Morning Blend, and keep doing what you do.
Thank you very much for having me.